Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Brittany Richter, National Director of Paid Social for the US. This Insight Lab is going to focus on paid social, but more specifically how it allows us to bring the point of engagement and transaction closer together. So first, paid social for us is under our earned media umbrella. And although it's paid social, we have it under earned because we define earned by any content-driven channel that has a high likelihood for shareability. And when we think about sharing content across digital, we think about articles, we think about videos, we think about images that we're constantly sharing. And if we're sharing right from the source of the article, so the original online publication, that's more native advertising, which if you haven't been there yet, coming attraction, Scott and Yenny are going to be talking about native a little bit. But when we think about social, we think about the Facebook newsfeed and the Twitter timeline and sharing things, tagging people in comments so that they can take a look at the content that we've seen that we think is going to be interesting to them. So because everything on social is all about content and it is so shareable, we have it under our earned umbrella. So as we see that media gets more and more fragmented, we notice that the path to purchase becomes less and less linear. And this is kind of what Jeremy was saying yesterday about mobile, about how it's already happened. Social has kind of already happened. We know that this is an important place that we need to be. And these stats should not be really surprising to you. So people spend almost 2 hours a day now on social media and check their Facebook newsfeed upwards of 14 times a day, which sounds a little crazy, but then when I think about it, I probably do that. And then taking screenshots of ads. And then of the 3 hours that we spend on mobile every day, more than 30% of that time is spent on social media, which is more than Google, MSN, and Yahoo properties combined. So clearly people are on mobile, people are on social, and it's important that as we think about the path to purchase and those traditional conversion driving channels like paid search and SEO that are still performing so well, that we also consider paid social. But we know this, brands know this, marketers know this, we've been doing this for a while. Social media has become an integral part of brand communications. And we see it pretty much everywhere that we look, right? So whether it's a hashtag on a billboard or in a commercial, or it's our favorite morning news anchors encouraging us to tweet to them, we see that it really has become a part of communications. But now we're seeing a different type of shift. We're seeing a shift towards direct response. As these platforms realize that for them to make money, the people who are advertising there need to be making money. They know that people rely on e-com and they rely on what they're driving online. So they are kind of moving towards this shift towards performance. So it's really important that we consider that as part of our performance mix. So whether we're using something like Swarm to drive people in store, or we're using a lead generation card on Twitter, an ad unit design specifically to capture leads, or offer ads on Facebook, and these are just a couple of the many examples that are out there, we're really seeing this shift and it's becoming more and more important. But as it becomes more important, it becomes more sophisticated and more complex in the best possible way, which means that it really requires this level of specialism, which is why Paid Social was the first product that we built under the earned umbrella at iProspect. So when we first started doing paid social, it was when Facebook first opened their API and they made it a self-serve biddable platform. And we were used to self-serve and biddable platforms, so we were excited. And things were really simple. So we could get up in the morning, show up to work, we could say we want to be on Facebook today, and by the end of the day we would have an ad on Facebook. But now things have changed considerably and it's not quite that simple. In fact, there's more than 8 platforms that we need to consider, more than 110 different ad units, and nearly infinite targeting capabilities that need to be considered when putting together a paid social plan, and this is why that specialism is so incredibly important. And the most exciting thing about the specialism and the sophistication is that it has brought true performance. And we define performance as driving qualified and efficient actions. And what those actions are based on whatever the higher level business objective is. So whatever we're trying to solve for the client, determining what desired user behavior we're seeking to drive that we think will help us move the needle towards solving that business objective. So there's no one KPI that fits for everyone, and although we've shifted to this pay-to-play space in social, it is absolutely not plug and play. So every plan that we do needs to be customized and tailor-fit. So we can drive this type of performance across the entire path of purchase and across the entire original marketing funnel. So whether we want to drive awareness with qualified impressions and a CPM, site traffic, conversions, or even engagement and dialogue, we can do that. And where we're really seeing a lot of success and a lot of opportunity is with conversion. So that last click conversion directly from the social platforms. And it allows us to really apply our long-standing history and our expertise in paid search, because the same rigor in the campaign structure and the bidding and the testing and things like that we're applying to how we operate in paid social, which is one of the reasons why we think we're seeing so much success there. And then the last important point before we go into some client success stories to bring it all to life is that as an earned channel, content is absolutely crucial. So the messaging and the creative that we use can truly make or break a campaign. So it's really important that we put the days of simply boosting a post and thinking it's going to perform behind us. And for that reason, every single strategic activation plan that we put in place will always include creative requirements and creative guidelines. So the requirements include things like which ad units are going to be best at driving that user behavior that we were talking about before, and what the creative specifications are for those. The guidelines talk more about the creative and the messaging. So it's all about segmentation. Rather than just simply targeting the entire audience with the same singular message, how can we tweak that message a little bit to make it a little bit more personally relevant to sub-segments within that larger target? And then, of course, we need to think about the aesthetic. Do we want to use a product shot? Do we want to use a lifestyle shot? Do we want to test the two? Should there be children in the picture? Should there be consumers in the picture? Does the age of the children matter? There are all those little tiny details that end up really making a big difference. This particular example is for New Belgium. We're doing a case study for them later. I'll talk about them a little bit later. I'm a big fan, so I get really excited about that one. But they recently launched their suite of their latest seasonal beers. One of them was a sour, one of them was an IPA, and one of them was an ale. And for any of you who are beer drinkers who know anything about beer, those are three very different types of beer. For example, I will absolutely try an ale, but there's no way you're gonna get me to drink a sour beer. So if you're sending me an ad for a sour beer, I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to it. Facebook knows, based on purchase data and the fact that they work with Epsilon and Datalogics, that I tend to buy ale and other similar products, so I can be targeted that way. On Twitter, they know that I like ale because that's the types of beers that I take a picture of on Instagram and push to Twitter. So there are different ways that we can actually set up the targeting so that we're being more personally relevant, and that's exactly what we did, and that's why we saw a huge increase in performance year over year from them launching their latest seasonals. And then, of course, just like we do with paid search or display, we want to set up the campaign with learning objectives in mind ahead of time, because we have to make sure that we implement in a way that will give us all of the data that we need in order to have all of these learnings about what targeting does the best, which segments perform better than others, which creative work the best. So we want to implement it in a way that we have those learnings so that we can apply that to future campaigns. So to bring this to life, we'll go through a couple of different client success stories. This first one is for Prudential. So technically it's B2B. Their primary target audience are financial advisors. But rather than just have the financial advisor bring up Prudential to their client, they want people coming to their financial advisor saying that they want to talk about Prudential. So for that reason, their approach is a little bit different, and it's more B2B2C. So what we did is we worked with them to create persona targets. So we worked with them and we looked at all the different life stages that people are in when they either should or already are thinking about meeting with a financial advisor. So whether someone just graduated from college, someone just had their first child, someone just bought a new home, all these different things, and we built out those segments. And Facebook knows all of those things, by the way. So you can actually target people pretty specifically. So what we did is we built those out and we made sure that the messaging was really specific to them. And we talk a lot about segmenting the audience and relevant messaging, but this is a really good example of that, because someone who just had their first child versus just graduated college versus just bought a home are in very different life stages, and what they need from Prudential is vastly different. So there is no one single message that's really going to resonate. It's incredibly important that we segment it out. And because we did that, they typically see an average engagement rate of 10%. So just for some context, on Facebook, the average is 2%. So 10 is really high, and particularly for their vertical, it does incredibly well. In fact, they just recently won 4 or 5 different awards for these campaigns. This example is Sonos. So this is a client that we actually share with our sister agency, Visium. They do communications planning for the above the line, and we handle digital performance. So they had planned a couple of March Madness commercials for last year, and this was right after or right before Twitter launched their TV conversation targeting. So we said, you know what, we should test this out. Let's be one of the first to do this. Let's put some ads on Twitter targeting people who are talking about March Madness that would indicate that they're interested in it and or watching it. So what we get, Twitter calls the 1-2 punch. So it's just double frequency, seeing it in more than one place, but also adding a performance layer. So the primary goal was engagement, so we optimized towards engagement. We had over a 20% engagement rate. Their vertical average is 4.18, so this performed incredibly well. But even though that was what we were optimizing towards, we're a performance agency, so we always want to provide the opportunity to convert, so if the user is ready, we make it easy for them. And this campaign ended up actually having a positive return on ad spend. So it wasn't an incredibly high return on ad spend, but that wasn't even the goal, and that's not what we were optimizing towards, so it more than paid for itself. So this has become a learning for us in every single campaign that we do for them, even the ones that are all about branding. We always provide the opportunity to convert, and almost every single time we get some conversions out of it, which is great. This example is Carter's. So Carter's and Oshkosh are two brands under one umbrella. They sell baby and small children's clothes. They came to us and they said, you've been doing our paid search, our display, and our SEO for a long time, and it's performing really well, but our organization has seen a small decline in our overall sales, and it looks like that started to happen right when Facebook changed their organic algorithm, and now we're reaching less of our fans. We think that this is having an impact on our business. Can we work with you to test some paid social? So we worked with them very closely. They had about 10K to test, so it was a small budget, but it performed really, really well. And for a couple of reasons. One, again, we applied the same rigor of their paid search campaigns to the way that we segmented their paid social campaigns, as well as taking what we know works in the ad copy and which landing pages really work the best in paid search, and we applied that to paid social. And we did a lot of different bid testing. So it performed incredibly well. They now run an evergreen strategy that they're constantly running, and they see anywhere between a $3 and a $15 return on ad spend. That's a really big window because whenever things are seasonal or they have really strong offers and promotions, that's when they're kind of at that higher end of 15. So this has led to not just an evergreen strategy for the US, but we've also expanded into Canada, and we're working with them to put together international playbooks so that their licensees in other countries can start to also leverage this as well. To tie it back to the beginning, of course, the segmenting and like the advanced targeting, so being able to target an expecting mom versus a mom of an infant and a mom of maybe a 10-year-old with different images that are more relevant to her, as well as these ad units. So this is just one of them. This is a link ad with a call to action button. So the whole ad unit is clickable. In a standard image ad, for example, if you click on the image, it just makes the image bigger. So that's obviously not going to help with click-through rate, but in this type of ad unit, when you click on the image, it takes you straight through to the site, as well as having the Shop Now call to action button. And then saving what I think is the most exciting one for last is New Belgium. So this is particularly relevant to our trip here because we've been talking about breweries. We're in Asheville. There's a lot of them here. Also, in case anyone's wondering, they do sell New Belgium here at the hotel. As my client and me being hyper loyal to my clients, I actually do love Fat Tire, one of their beers, and I cannot get it in New York where I work or in New Jersey where I live, and it's tragic. But being here and being at a restaurant last night, I found out they had Fat Tire, so that was really exciting. So if anyone else is having the same problem, they do have it here, so you can enjoy it before you leave. So it's an amazing company. They're employee owned. They do all of their content in-house. It's always really entertaining, really well done. And they don't do any above the line advertising whatsoever. So when they created video assets, of course a commercial was not an option for them. So they looked to us, and of course we did some YouTube, but we also know that Facebook recently at that time had launched the updates to their video product. Video autoplay, quartile reporting, video retargeting, so on and so forth. So we chose to leverage that, and we did some A/B testing because they had two desired user behaviors. The first one was video views, but the second one was video shares. And on Facebook, you can actually optimize towards either of those, so we tested both. And we found that even when optimizing towards video views, we got more shares than when we just optimized towards video shares. So doing all of that testing is incredibly important. Now this also goes back to the segmented targeting that I was talking about earlier, but it also has to do with the ad units. So when you actually upload the video directly to Facebook, you can leverage all of those updates to the video product, but if you just use a link to YouTube, then you don't get any of those features or any of those benefits, and that's a big difference. Because what we did was we built an audience of people who tend to watch their videos, and then when we get new video content, we target with them because we know that it's going to do really well, but also when we're trying to drive site traffic or event signups or things like that, we know we have this audience of people who are highly engaged and highly qualified and who love their video content, so we also target them. So it performs really well. Oh yeah, and 27.69% engagement rate. I mean, if 10% was high, I mean, that's a different vertical, and that was actually exceptional for them. This was out of control. We saw it in the morning, and we were like, okay, let's not get our hopes up. By the end of the day, this will probably go down, but it didn't. It only came down from 30 to 27.69, so it performed really well. So between having really highly qualified targeting, the strongest ad unit, and a strong bid strategy in place, it performed well. So the key takeaways is that, first of all, things are being left on the table, whether it's awareness driving, consideration driving, or trying to drive conversions. There's incremental performance that can be seen from paid social. But there are three primary things that have to be in place in order for it to perform exceptionally well. The first one is identifying that desired user behavior. You cannot effectively optimize towards two different desired user behaviors simultaneously. It's just not how biddable media works. So you can have more than one desired user behavior, but you need to segment them out. But determining what that desired user behavior is and who you're trying to reach is what will determine which platform is the right fit, which ad units make the most sense, what targeting you want to use, so on and so forth. So that is the primary, #1, most critical first step. And then, of course, the last one is strategically segmenting. I think people are probably going to be sick of me saying the word segmenting by the end of Summit, but it is really important. We see a huge increase in performance anytime we can make the messaging more relevant to who we're targeting. And lastly, design content for performance. If you leave with anything today, it's that the days of boosting content to fit a paid strategy should be behind us. We should be leveraging those powerful ad units. We should be leveraging what we can through those unpublished posts. And that's everything that I have. We have plenty of time for questions. If you guys have any, I'd be happy to answer them. Sure. The research that's involved? So the question is about defining an audience or the research that's involved. So sometimes a client comes to us and knows exactly who they want to reach. Sometimes we know that we want to retarget people who have been to the website, which we can do in social, or we want to target their CRM list, whether it's their best customers, their worst customers, somewhere in between. But then other times they come to us and just tell us like exactly who. But the most exciting thing that we do is actually when we work with the strategy team and we're able to use CCS, which is our proprietary survey data, to kind of find out all about the consumer behaviors and build out personas and then match that targeting back on the social platforms. Does that answer your question? Okay. Sure.
It's interesting in social because it's a very personal, segmented, one-to-one kind of discussion. But social is also very much like word of mouth, where people are sharing things constantly. That's why it's earned. Have you seen any advertisers, or have we done anything with, say, like a private offer that you would want to restrict to a certain group of people? Or is that not the right approach? Should you make an exclusive offer for social that people can share?
That's a good question. So, honestly, one reason why we sometimes do social only offers is so that we can track it. If it's only on social, then we know people aren't getting there from another channel. But we do also want to reward fans. So like Carter's and Oshkosh will sometimes reward their fans. So you can target just the fans and do it that way. But the other way that we do it is actually in the reverse. People who have bought from us but not in a really long time, we often give them an exclusive offer. But then the Facebook offer ads that we don't make exclusive, it's just a Facebook offer ad, they tend to get shared a lot, and then more and more people start to claim them. So we get a lot of earned media, particularly off of those. It's a good question.
So back in 2007-8, this was obviously an emerging channel, and a lot of clients that already had that has changed. Some clients took years, sometimes to get approval to launch a Facebook page, took 2 years to launch a Facebook page before they could take advantage of ads. So you mentioned platforms here that are playground, paid social, other emerging platforms, which clients that are willing to take the risk and experiment with other emerging platforms that you recommend.
Sure. So the question is about emerging platforms. So the biggest one that's on my radar right now is Instagram. So it's not emerging in the sense that the consumer has already adopted it by and large, and a lot of advertisers are also using it. But it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the ad capabilities are. I'm always saying that it's not about the shiny new platform, it's about the shiny new ad capability. So although Instagram's been around for a while, I think that their advertising capabilities are really going to get stronger by the end of this year. We're already seeing it in now that you can run an ad on Instagram and then retarget the people who saw your ad on Facebook. I think that's just one indication of the direction that we're going in, so I think that's definitely one to watch. I think that once Snapchat brings down their minimum investment level, we'll see some cool things going on there, but they need to really bring that down. It's like $750,000. Yeah, and then LinkedIn keeps kind of impressing me. Especially for the B2B space, LinkedIn targeting is highly qualified. I actually would love to get some retailers on LinkedIn. I think, you know, new job, new wardrobe, or people in certain levels with certain types of clothes that you have, I think could be exciting. So I think Instagram's probably the one to watch for right now, and Pinterest. Pinterest is a really strong organic referral source. So I think once they allow us to use things like DCM tags and get more advanced in their targeting, and they make it self-serve and biddable, then I think we'll be able to see some success there too.
You mentioned LinkedIn for B2C. Have you used that to see work the right space for that?
Yeah, I mean, again, the number one question is what you're trying to get people to do and who you're trying to reach. So if the targeting available on LinkedIn matches the type of people that you're trying to reach, then I think it would be a good fit. But the scalability also isn't there. There aren't as many people on LinkedIn as frequently as they are on the other platforms, so it's less inventory. And I haven't seen a ton of non-B2B or B2C companies doing it, and they don't seem to be able to provide me with that many case studies either. But I would really love to test it, so if you know anyone. Any other questions? No? All right. Thank you guys so much.